Hello. I thought I'd pick up a few of your comments. Jerry T says, comedy gold from Tory Mark Harper, the man whose name I couldn't remember. Clearly, he hopes that the party will be more memorable and the coming election will be more memorable in a good way than he is. We have a plan, and he thinks the Tories will win the election. I wonder if they ever feel embarrassed trotting out this utter nonsense. I think they probably do. And it is telling, isn't it, that Mark Harper was the only person they could find to trot out this particular nonsense. And the point that I was trying to make was that what he was trotting out was tokenism. And you can't simply turn around and say, well, because there are a number of people of colour in the cabinet, we are not racist. Racism is about an attitude of superiority. It's about a form of bullying, and it's about a form of it's about a form of engagement that doesn't deal with individuals, it deals with groups and box ticking. And I'm afraid this is something not only that is prevalent in the Conservative Party, but is prevalent across Parliament and across our increasingly bureaucratic culture. If you ticked a box, then you can't be accused of racism or sexism, misogyny or whatever. Simply not true. To tick a box is not to is not to avoid your responsibility for dealing with people on a personal and genuine basis, for dealing with people with authenticity. Andrew says, in reference to the panic in the Conservative Party, where I was talking about sending people off to Rwanda, paying them £3,000 to go on a tour. He says, name the plane, Windrush 2. I think that's quite entertaining. I think having failed so adroitly to deal with the problem of Windrush, which in turn was created by Theresa May. Think of all those things that the present government has created and it's now trying to tidy up. It created the small boats problem because it left Lord Frost to negotiate the exit from Brexit, or the exit for Brexit, the exit from the EU. And it was so badly arranged, the small boats was the product, because there was no negotiation, there was no arrangement to replace Dublin III. The Dublin III protocol effectively stopped the small boats in such large numbers coming to the UK. It stopped people risking their lives to seek solace on our shores. And this was not something which was thought through by Lord Frost. He didn't think through the problems with Northern Ireland. Hence, Chris Heaton-Harris had to come in to pick up the slack and waste 2 years or so trying to sort out the Windsor Protocol, the Windsor Agreement, one of the first things of the new King's reign. And something of an achievement, frankly, even if the DUP is still mealy-mouthed about it. And then we come to Shelley Lime, who is always good for an interesting comment. Let me quote the whole of Shelley's point. She's talking about an issue that I raised in a video about links between Hoyle, Abbott, Anderson and Sunak. And among the other things I flagged up was the fact that Lee Anderson had no sooner joined Reform than he was sent a message from the Carlton Club to tell him to resign from the Carlton Club. I think had he been an old Etonian, I cannot imagine an old Etonian who knew all the people in the Carlton Club. I cannot imagine that they would have been so quick to ask for his resignation. That's just my assumption, and I think it leaves a rather unattractive taste in the mouth, as if Lee Anderson was again the token working class boy in the Conservative Party, sort of shoring up the red wall. This again is absurd. Rather like I think Nadine Dorries was playing this role before Lee Anderson came along. And it's a very ugly image to play. There are many working class conservatives, just as there are many Labour supporters who have been through the public school system and like Tony Benn. And I think, I don't think the Labour Party has a monopoly on social conscience, and I don't think the Conservative Party has necessarily the best direction for the working class. I think there is a difference between political commitment and background and education, and there is a variety, and we should be much more careful about how we make assumptions about a person's political background from or political affiliation from their race, from their class, from their education. And yet we fall into this trap again and again. What Shelley says, anyway, there is no essential difference between someone who administers the Carlton Club requiring a hitherto member of the club to be excluded because she does not agree with that member's political views in a free democracy, and someone hosting a social political channel on YouTube who tells their subscribers to write to the Prime Minister demanding the sacking of a particular cabinet minister whose political views the host himself does not like. If the first example constitutes, quote, bullying as an abuse of perceived power, then so does the second. Actually, the issue of the Carlton Club requiring Lee Anderson to tender his resignation, I don't think does constitute bullying, but the sort of pressures that are put on Lee Anderson because he is a working class boy, I think probably constitutes tokenism, if not some sort of bullying. I don't think Lee Anderson is particularly the issue about bullying in such in that particular video. Do listen to it again, Shelley. The focus there is on Diane Abbott, and Lee Anderson is about the tokenism. But absolutely, I don't think the Carlton Club would have demanded the resignation of Rees-Mogg had he gone over to Reform, and I think there are many others. But we will see what happens over the next few weeks when Reform embraces a few more weary former members of the Conservative Party, which is certainly what is anticipated. Let's see if it plays out. Let's see if Richard Tice can manage to persuade more disgruntled cabinet, current or former cabinet members to join his ranks. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Reform rankers by the time we get to the next general election, if that is delayed until November. What else can they do to gather headlines other than defect to Reform?